When a farmer plows a field, his ability to carve a straight line depends entirely on where he's looking. If he turns his head to look at the ground he's already covered, his hands will instinctively follow his gaze, and the plow will veer off course. This is the physical reality of momentum. Whether you are driving a car or building a life, you naturally steer toward whatever you are looking at. Your trajectory follows your focus. The problem is that our focus is easily derailed. We spend our energy looking back at past regrets, or we get distracted by the immediate pressures of the world around us. In a spiritual sense, faith is determined by a specific orientation. There are 3 directional looks that decide whether you reach your destination or lose your way. Of these 3, only one provides the focus necessary to keep moving when the path ahead is unclear. Controlling where you look is the only way to avoid stalling out in the middle of your journey. The first dangerous direction is looking back. As Lot and his family fled the destruction of their city, his wife was commanded not to look behind her. But as she escaped, she turned her head to look one last time. This wasn't a reflex. It was a physical sign of unbelief, a longing for the life and the comforts she was told to leave behind. Because she couldn't detach from her past, she was turned into a pillar of salt. She became stuck exactly where she turned around. Romanticizing the past we were meant to leave behind stops our progress. It anchors us to a version of ourselves that no longer exists. The second dangerous direction is looking around. When the Apostle Peter attempted to walk on the water toward Jesus, he initially succeeded because his eyes were fixed on his goal. But the text notes that the moment he took his eyes off Jesus and looked at the wind and the waves, he began to sink. When we focus on our immediate, chaotic circumstances, our fear overrides our faith. We start to sink into the very environment we were meant to overcome. Fixating on the noise and turbulence around you ensures that you will lose your footing, regardless of how much faith you had when you started. The only successful direction is looking forward. We see this in Abraham, who left his home for a land he had never seen. Abraham adopted what is called a pilgrim mindset. He chose to live as a temporary resident in this world, refusing to settle down or get comfortable. He lived in temporary tents because his focus was on the future. He was looking forward to a city with permanent foundations, one designed and built by God. By anchoring his eyes on a promise that hadn't happened yet, Abraham was able to move through the present without getting trapped by it. To reach that destination, we have to avoid the 2 traps. We can't be tethered to the past like Lot's wife, and we can't be panicked by the present like Peter. But looking forward to God's promise eventually requires looking toward the one who made it. This is where looking forward becomes looking upward. As Stephen, the first Christian martyr, was being executed by a violent mob, he didn't look at the stones or the men throwing them. He looked up and saw a vision of heaven. That upward focus changed his response to the crisis. Because he was looking at the glory of God, he was able to endure the stones and even speak words of forgiveness as he died. This upward perspective provides a point of reference that remains steady even when your physical circumstances are failing. Take a moment to examine what's currently holding your attention. Are you looking back at what you've lost, or looking around at the storms you can't control? Progress requires a deliberate shift in where you point your eyes. You have to look past the visible, temporary world toward the promises that don't change. This is why the book of Hebrews tells us to fix our eyes on Jesus, the source and the finisher of our faith. He is the fixed point that keeps the rest of the world in perspective. The success of your journey isn't determined by your surroundings. It is determined by the direction of your gaze.